Absolutely. Hey, everybody, if you're joining us today for our webinar, thanks so much for being here. We're going to wait a few minutes till the top of the hour, and then we will start things up. But feel free to jump in the chat in the meantime and say hi to one another. And glad you all are here. Hey, everybody who's coming on the call, thanks so much for dialing in. We're waiting just a couple more minutes till we get all of our participants here, and then we will start up. But feel free in the meantime to say hello in the chat and tell us where you're calling in from. Gosh, we've got people from Kansas, Utah, Northern Virginia, Colorado. Got our Jacksonville and North Carolina crew. I hope everybody down there is doing okay. I know it's been a rough few days, to say the least. Great to see some of our dragonflies on the call too. Shout out to Melisha, Catherine, Emily. Amanda, I see you're on with us too. Lex, Dave. All right, we got a great crew today. Hey, Catherine, I saw you raised your hand, Catherine Pucci. If you have a question, anybody pop it in the Q&A for us. That's the best place for us to see those if you have something specific you want to ask. All right, well, it's a couple minutes past the top of the hour, so why don't we dive into our session today? So everybody who's here, thank you so much for being here. We're really excited about this webinar. It's something we've been working on for a while. Just so everybody knows, this is being recorded, and we will share the recording in the next day or so after we're done with the presentation. When you get it, feel free to share it with any of your colleagues or friends who might be curious about what we had to talk about. So today, in short, we're going to talk about how we're using AI here at Dragonfly. And to get us started, I'm going to put up a poll on the screen that everybody can respond to so we can learn more about how you guys are using AI. So let me pop that up for everybody. and you can just click and respond. So let me start by saying our journey with AI over the past couple years has been up and down. I think we all sort of started out at the beginning of last year with the advent of ChatGPT and other tools, kind of feeling a lot of fear and trepidation, frankly, and rightly so, because we were seeing some pretty weird things in early results from our LLMs. We've kind of moved through a period of cautious exploration and research to a point now where we're actually using some of these tools in our day-to-day work here at Dragonfly. And we think that it's helping in our work and it's benefiting you guys, our clients. So with that in mind, we wanted to be really transparent about what we are doing, what we're finding that works, what's not working so well, and some of the concerns that we still have and what we're going to be watching in the future. So let me dive, let me see what everybody has to say with our poll so far. Looks like we have a pretty good representation across the board. I'll share these results with everybody. About 45% are using it both at work and in personal life. A quarter of us just at work, a little bit in personal life. And again, about a quarter of us haven't really started using it at all yet. So hopefully what we talk about today will give you guys some ideas on how maybe you can start using it in the future with your team. So let me dive right in, and I want to introduce our panelists that we have today. And there's some pretty awesome people. You guys probably work with them already. Emily, who's our writing manager, Kaylin, who takes care of our whole editing world, Casey, who manages design, and Molly, who works behind the scenes running our project management crew. And she keeps all of us on time, on schedule, on budget, and making sure we get done what we're supposed to do. So let's jump right in. And oh, let me say also, as I said, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in that Q&A. And we'll try to take questions as we have time throughout, but then we'll have a lot of time at the end to have a regular Q&A session. So Emily, why don't you jump in and tell us how you are using AI right now in your writing world?
Yes, and thank you again to everybody for attending today and joining us. We're really happy to be talking with you, and I'm happy to jump us off in the writing world. And I'll start by kind of saying that if I were an AI, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, I might start my slide with, in a world where that seems to be most of the LLM's favorite ways to start any article, no matter how I have prompted the tool to speak to me. It always says, in a world where AI is revolutionizing, in a world where technology is in a digital transformation. And it's my very first clue when I look at newsletters that come through my inbox or content on the web. Yes, someone said like a middle school essay, exactly like a middle school essay. If I see that, I know AI probably wrote this, and we are not AI. So to give you a few more examples, I prompted Claude to write me an 800-word article, and I gave myself a persona. I'm a copywriter who is ghostwriting an article about how AI is affecting mid to large size B2B industries. I mentioned who my audience is, probably a lot of your industries who are tuning in right now. And I gave it a specific word count, and I gave it a tone. And this is what it gave me in many words. And these are words that I see a lot with these tools. AI loves the word navigate, paradigm shift, unprecedented, especially in B2B communications. Exponentially, which I think any editor who has taught math courses will say exponentially doesn't always apply in context. We've got reshaping the landscape. For some reason, AI loves to say enabling instead of other terms. And As a result, as I've played around with AI, I have grown to hate the word enable or enabling in my writing. Underscore, transformative. So these are just terms and words that I'm seeing over and over and over again, no matter how I prompt these large language models. So I'll tell you first, though, what is working. And what's working in our department are a few things: ideation and brainstorming. We love to use these tools to come up with ideas, to help us start an article and then maybe rewrite it in our own voice because we're having trouble putting words on a page. I have used it to help me outline. And I will say, I never use the outline in full at the end because it gets very wordy and loves bullet points, but it helps start the process for my brain. We use it for research. In my personal and my professional life, I have found that it's much faster to get the answer for something I want using ChatGPT or Perplexity to do my research than it is to go to Google. But then, of course, like any smart or good copywriter or editor, I'm going to fact check that and make sure that the answer it gives me is correct and true. I use these tools to find quotes. And what I mean here is when I do a subject matter expert interview, if I happen to have a transcript from that, I like to plug the transcript in and ask the tool to find me some quotes. And I, of course, in my prompting, have to give it some context and tell it what I'm looking for. And I know what I'm looking for because I did the interview, but it's faster at helping me find that through the long transcript. I use it to help write summaries. It's very good at summarizing. I will say that if you give it a long bit of text and you need one big summary or some like 3 bullet points of like the main ideas from an article, it can do that really well for you and really quickly. And it's good at suggesting SEO, which is certainly not unimportant, but in the world of creativity, SEO maybe doesn't require as much of my brain power as writing an article. And so to have these large language models helping me come up with some SEO suggestions for articles speeds up my process. And do I use them all? Probably not. But does it get me going on the path that I need to go? Absolutely.
Hey, Emily.
Yeah.
Can I mention a really niche thing that I've been using it for to help me with writing?
Yes.
I've been putting together a course for ACES and Pointer on how to develop an editorial style guide for your company. And so we have learning, and then there's quiz that has to be created for the attendees. And I've been able to put my content into, in this case, Perplexity, and say, hey, would you suggest 3 or 4 quiz questions based on this? And it has done a fantastic job of creating quiz questions for me or suggesting them. Again, I may not use them exactly as given, but it's a great starting place.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really interesting one, and one in which I wish I had had these tools back when I was with the magazine and we had to put a quiz at the end of the publication so that people could get their CPE if they sent it back in. Coming up with those, I think it was 10 questions we had to come up with, sometimes took a lot longer than some of the other content we were writing. Thanks, Sam. And so for what's not working in our department, quite a few things. These tools produce hallucinations, and quite frequently. To go back to that finding quotes example from transcripts, like I said, I'm the one doing the interview, so I know what we talked about. And one time I asked it to pull some quotes for me, and I'm looking through the answers, and I realize I don't remember them saying this. And then I'm going to the transcript and I'm hitting Control F, and I'm not finding it. And I'm telling my tool that is not an accurate quote from this transcript. And of course, it loves to say it's sorry to me as if it's sentient. But you have to check everything that you use this with because it's not completely accurate and it is going to produce hallucinations. It also may introduce bias into your writing. I haven't had a ton of instances of this. I don't have specific examples, but I still would caution anybody who uses these tools to check for bias throughout their content. The quality is not great. I humbly believe I am a much better writer than ChatGPT or Claude. If we think about that first slide I showed you, I would never start an article within a world where it's just not the way that I write. I've spent a long time honing my skills and going to conferences and learning from mentors, and these tools aren't doing that. And so the quality of the content it's giving us is it's not bad, but it's not professional copywriter quality. You have to worry about plagiarism. Everything that we do with these tools, we need to check against content across the web, because that is what it's pulling from. And so it could very easily plagiarize content from another author, which is the last thing I would ever want to do, or just plagiarize research or anything like that. So you have to fact check. You have to make sure that anything that you're working with is true and in our own voice, which is why I suggest rewriting anything that ChatGPT gives you to put it into your own voice, or any other tool. It's not great at nailing voice, tone, or style. We had a question come in before the webinar saying that Dragonfly writers are so good at nailing an author's tone. So where does AI play into this? And my answer to that is we are so great at that because in everything that we do with subject matter expert interviews, our own independent research, and using our own voice infused with the voice of our clients to create content, also off of your style guides and your brand voice and guidelines. We are taking all of this into consideration when we're writing. And these tools just, again, no matter how well I prompt it, they're never going to land the voice of each of my individual clients, because our clients each have their own distinct and individual voices. And then substantive editing. I love to substantive edit. I just taught a course last week on how to substantive edit content. And it's one of my favorite forms of rewriting. And do I use these tools to help me when I'm stuck on a sentence? Sure. Does it give me what I end up wanting to use in the end? Probably not, because what it loves to do is, again, no matter how I prompt it, telling it to use plain language, remove jargon, put in an active voice, it will completely rewrite a sentence sometimes. And I don't need to do that with all of my substantive edits. It also it'll either won't cut things that I know I would cut, or it will cut things that I probably would have kept and just reworked or moved to a different part of the article. So I would caution using these tools for substantive editing purposes. So that kind of covers my realm of the writing world. If you have any questions, please pop them into the chat and I'd be happy to answer them. Sam, do you see anything off the bat? I think you're on mute, Sam.
Yeah, we did have one question that came in, and the person was saying, since generative AI is trained by pulling data from across the web, sometimes without agreement from the content author, how can you check you aren't plagiarizing? I have a couple thoughts on that I'll share, and then anything that you want to share, Emily, would be great. So a couple things. One of my personal favorite tools is to use when I'm as a writing assist is called Perplexity. And that's a AI tool that one of the things that's neat about it is it'll give you an answer and it has footnotes with everything that it provides you, showing exactly the source that information came from. So as needed, I can go back to the original source and make sure that Perplexity hasn't just copied and pasted something from that original source. The other answer is we don't really use hardly anything, just spit it out.
Spat out?
Spat out as it comes from Chat GPT or anything else. We're usually getting it really for prompting ideas and thoughts. So rarely, if ever, are we, taking any content that we get and just plopping it into a piece and using it as it comes in. But
That was going to be my answer, Sam. We don't use it to write full articles, full white papers, reports, or anything. So, like even down to the sentence level, it helps my brain churn, but what ends up on the page comes from me in the end and from my writers. And so that's how we avoid the plagiarism concern. Someone else asked, do you use it to write social media posts? We have tried, and again, with very specific parameters. I'll tell it how many characters, I'll tell it who the audience is, I'll tell it what kind of call to action to give. And it's often, again, not exactly what I want. It's very much too friendly sometimes for our industry. I know with B2B comms, we want social media to be friendly, but not like we're talking to our old high school friends that we haven't connected with in a long time. And again, perhaps my prompting could get better. But at what point with a short 240 character social media post does it take more time to over prompt something than to just write it myself? So you're kind of weighing those against each other. So yeah, I'm gonna take a break there unless there's something else, Sam. You're on mute again. Sorry.
We did have a question come in about custom GPTs, but I know Kaylin's going to talk about that in her section, so I'll hold on that for now.
Well, if that was the only one, then that is a great transition because following me is Kaylin.
All right.
Thanks, Emily. I was really grateful that I had to think about AI just almost strictly in terms of how we are using it in my department at Dragonfly, because there's so much important to cover. And if all of us tried to cover every beat, we would be here all day. Personally, I'm excited about AI as an editor. It's not just reshaping the editorial world, but really everything. And I think it's important to my work to understand it, what it can do, and where it's applicable, and honestly, where it isn't applicable. So let me walk you through how we're using it in the editing department. Currently, what we're exploring and our ongoing concerns. As far as how we're currently using it, we have a couple of specific uses for it. Bear in mind that our approach is evolving, always evolving, and we're still experimenting with these things and where they belong in our workflow. So that said, we use it the most, I think, to look at references, and tools for formatting references have been around for a while, like Zotero and EndNote. Manually formatting references is time consuming, and I think AI has the potential to help streamline this type of work by quickly adjusting to specific citation style. The editor still has to go behind the robot to review its work because it does hallucinate and it does make things up. And so we never run a references list through AI, for example, and then just send it along without checking its work. But this is something that I think we're experimenting the most with in my department. We're also using AI to create macros. So most of you probably know this, but just in case, macros are a series of instructions that can be programmed to automate repetitive editing tasks, like making certain text bold, highlighting text, or even analyzing text for capitalization inconsistencies, things like that. And by automating these repetitive tasks, macros allow you as a copy editor to focus more on the nuanced aspects of editing, like sentence flow and clarity. And I think ChatGPT has made creating macros so much easier. We can go in, we can ask it to create a macro for whatever editing task we want to automate, and it does the programming for you. It even provides instructions for how to install the macro it creates, which was a big deal for me as somebody who had like a high barrier to entry for macros. I've been an editor for over a decade now, and in my previous role, we didn't really use them. So I learned a lot about them at Dragonfly, and I still didn't quite understand how to use them. But with ChatGPT offering up instructions, it made it a lot easier for me to start experimenting with it. And I will say a few of the editors on my team were already well versed in creating macros prior to AI technology, and others are now interested in learning about them and seeing how those can speed up our workflow. So I think those are the big ones in my department as far as what we are currently seeing about integrating into our workflow. looking forward, we're exploring additional ways AI could improve those workflows. And one of those ways is fact checking and using AI to aid in fact checking. So Perplexity, for example, is really useful for this. You can ask it to look at specific types of sources when you're using it for fact checking. And all that said, it doesn't replace human judgment, but it can potentially speed up sourcing. So that's something that we've talked about a lot on my team. Another thing of interest from my department is a tool called Edit GPT. So you install it as a browser extension, and when you're asking it to edit for you, for example, making a first pass on a document, you can click the Edit GPT extension and it will track changes right there in Chat GPT, really similar to how Word tracks changes for you. There are some challenges to this, and that's why we aren't yet implementing it into our processes. There isn't a clean way to get the track changes from Edit GPT into Word. And ChatGPT and other AI, in my experience, really struggles with large documents. So it's not as simple as just loading like a huge report into the tool and then it spitting out like a beautiful document with changes tracked in return. You can always copy and paste it, in sections, but then you risk introducing errors, which is what we don't want to do as editors. So until this functionality evolves, I don't anticipate implementing it more heavily into my department's workflow, but it's not off the table. It's something that we're, tracking, seeing what it can do, checking up on, and trying to stay on top of to see, once it does become something we could use, how it would then fit into our workflow. Most recently, we've been considering custom GPTs and how those aid us with creating client style sheets, for example. So as a start, I've experimented with building one in-house to help with proofreading our Dragonfly blogs and field guides and newsletters. So this custom GPT is trained on our Dragonfly voice and style. I gave it examples of our blogs, of our newsletters, and said, this is what you should strive for. I loaded our in-house style guide to it, and basically gave it a persona. Like Emily talks about, your role is to do X, Y, and Z, and please do that. It's more nuanced than that, but for the sake of brevity. And what I'm hoping to use it for is to make the first editing and proofreading pass on our in-house content, just to see how it works, to see what the potential is there. Some of my team have been trying it out and providing feedback so I can tweak the instructions a little as we go and see how it does. And I would love for this to eventually work out to us building custom GPTs for our clients. So when we do work for those clients, we have a custom GPT that could ensure potentially adherence to specific guidelines by quickly flagging issues. And that in turn could save editors some time by doing the first or final pass on a piece of content.
Yeah.
As far as concerns go, we're excited about the potential AI, but we also want to be mindful of its limitations and the broader implications of using it. So one thing my team discusses a lot is the sustainability piece, excuse me, of AI tools. So we are aware that AI tools have a large carbon footprint, especially when it comes to large scale processing or server usage. And it's something we'll continue to evaluate and be mindful of. Ethical considerations are also top of mind for us. Emily talked a little bit about what that looks like for her department. We need to be cautious about relying too heavily on AI in areas like, really any of it, but especially fact checking and content creation where bias and accuracy can be issues. We want to ensure that our use of AI aligns with ethical editorial practices and doesn't undermine the trustworthiness of the content we work on for our clients. In the flurry of excitement about AI, I really think it's easy to forget the impact of it, of its use as well. And it's really such a privilege to me to have a team of really brilliant, inquisitive editors who are committed to and not afraid of having discussions about their concerns using it. We also recognize that AI is constantly evolving. I took a class with Aaron Survey back in February, and so much of it is still relevant, and a lot of it has changed regarding using AI for editing. So ongoing education about it is important to me and to Dragonfly, and we're always on the lookout for webinars and classes about AI. We try to regularly read and share articles with one another to understand the latest developments and make sure our decisions about integrating AI into our work and into our editing department are informed to the very best of our ability. So that's all that to say is that I'm excited about the possibilities AI offers to us at Dragonfly and to my department as editors. But I also want to move forward thoughtfully so that we can maintain the high standards that define our work here. And you'll notice that I mentioned with almost everything, the editor still has to go behind the AI task and check it. And I think that's the most important thing. Human editors and humans in general add value that I think AI simply can't. AI is a really powerful tool, but human creatives are absolutely essential to wielding it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we continue to come up with and how we can continue to use it.
Thank you so much, Kaylin. That's
Yeah.
really awesome. And we had a question that came in the chat about the use of Grammarly, and I think you answered the same answer that you just gave applies to Grammarly or some of the other tools that are out there that are assistive. Grammarly I use Grammarly. It can sometimes make great suggestions and help me catch things that I wouldn't have seen. It often suggests things also that make no sense or that don't improve the piece or that are completely wrong. So I have to kind of review and approve or reject each of its suggestions one by one. So yes, there is value, but you have to be very cautious in how you apply it. And let me just jump back to what you were talking about with the custom GPTs. And Emily and Kaylin, tell me if this is correct. It sounds like we are in the nascent stages of starting to build some custom GPTs for our customers and for ourselves, but we haven't super rolled that out yet. Is that correct?
I think that's correct for my department. I don't want to speak for yours, Emily.
Yeah, that's the same with ours. We've been spending a lot of time playing with what's available, but haven't dove into custom completely yet.
Yeah.
I will say that we do have a client who is very open to the use of AI, and I met with our project manager who handles their work earlier this week to discuss creating a custom GPT for them. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. I want to move on, but let me address very quickly. We're getting a lot of questions about editing references. And I'll say that I believe the main thing that we use now is ChatGPT and ask it specifically to edit references according to a given style. Travis is asking, doesn't that still, does that really save time if you have to go back and check it? I would say 100%, because if you've ever edited a reference list, there's an incredible amount of bolding and unbolding, italicizing and unitalicizing, moving the publication date from the beginning of the reference to the end of the reference, spelling out volume instead of VOL. It's a lot of really minute work that I might suggest is not the highest value effort that an editor can provide to a document. So honestly, having an AI do all of that busy work first and then have us go back and check really does save a lot of time. Michelle or Jessica, I don't know if you're on the call, but Susie is asking if you have a sense if the AIs can do better than Zotero or EndNote right now. I don't know the answer to that, but if any of you guys want to chat that in, go for it. And who do we have next?
That's me, I believe.
All right.
On the design side. So I will take on over here. All right, so on the design team right now, we're mostly using Adobe Firefly, which is the built-in engine into programs we live in all day, every day. So it's InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator. It just sort of makes sense. That's where we already are. And so it's, kind of experimenting with what's already in the programs we use most frequently. We're using a little bit of ChatGPT, and I can explain in a little bit how we are using it there. So what's working for us, it'll give us a jump start on some really complicated graphics. A lot of us are not illustrators, but we know how to kind of use the tools and do that if we need to. I'll just share an example here. On the left is something that AI spit out from Illustrator with a prompt. And you can see there's sort of like a lot of weird stuff going on. It's hard, I can't really zoom in on the image, but kind of shapes that bleed into one another, things that just don't really make sense. So I was able to use this as a base and sort of figure out the composition that I wanted and play with that until I got the right image that I wanted. And then on the right is customized for the client. So using the client's branding and sort of redrawn, cleaned up. So this probably saved me a couple hours of time just because I didn't have to, like, I don't draw shipping containers very often. So just having something to start with was really helpful in this case. And then similar to the other teams, brainstorming and inspiration. So a lot of times with ChatGPT, we will ask it, what's a good icon that represents X, Y, or Z? We try to come up with these a lot by ourselves, but then there are some really abstract concepts that are just difficult to come up with ideas for. And that's where ChatGPT can really help and gives you a bulleted list of like, here's things you can try. And it can be really helpful there. Or, you know, similar to the example I just shared, if I have a vision in my head of how I want something to look, but just not, I don't want to start from a blank page, we can throw it in there and see what it spits out. And then it kind of gets the wheels turning a little bit more. Technical walkthroughs. I think, I can't remember who mentioned, but you know, just asking it how to do something that we might not know how to do, especially in like the Microsoft environment. I'm sure everybody's very familiar with the challenges that Word can throw at you. So Google can be a very, like you can go down so many rabbit holes and it's hard to find an answer. So, you know, on my team, a lot of times we'll ask it how to do something specific and it'll pull all of the relevant information for us into one spot. So just kind of saving time there. Another thing that's kind of specific is expanding photos. So just to sort of demonstrate this, let's say I need to use this photo for a client layout and there's just not enough space around this rock formation to be able to add text or any other information. So this is the new dimension that I want to make my photo. So within Photoshop, there's a generative fill option that it either will use context clues for what's already in the image, or I could tell it something specific to fill that empty space with. And within a single click, it sort of reads what's around it in the image and can fill in, like you can see the sky is very seamlessly, the gradient just continues up. It added these red rocks. This is another option. It sort of looks like we're by the sea now. So this is something that could be very manual and it would take multiple steps to do. But this sort of gets us there a little bit quicker and would be a good use case if we had clients that provided specific images and we needed to use those images, but needed to alter them in certain ways. And then enhancing photos. There's now websites where you can upload blurry, pixelated, you know, the colors off photos, and with a single click, it'll fix it right up for you. So this is just an example here. You can see the picture on the left is fairly blurry. The colors aren't very crisp. And then this is the output on the right. And there is still like some areas where if you zoom way in, it's like, oh, that's not right. And something is a little off here. But this, I think, is a really cool application, like especially as, you know, a lot of us have old printed pictures and we might want to, you know, refresh them and bring them back to life. And then as far as what's not working, there's a lot of unpredictability in terms of the results that you get from the generative AI. It really struggles with people, the correct number of limbs and digits and facial features. And I'm going to share, this is an infamous example here at Dragonfly. We call it the cursed high five. You can see it's a relatively simple prompt, 2 men high five, and it's pretty much a completely unusable result. Like the high five is not connecting. There's a random limb coming up from somewhere and it's not a human limb, and lack of fingers, facial features. It's a nightmare. It is a bit scary, Heather. Definitely a scary image. And even for non-people images, I mentioned, you know, with the cargo ship example, there's just things that don't really make sense. You sort of know it when you see it. It just feels off. So in terms of the generative images, we really can't use very much. Like it's pretty limited in what we're able to use. And then we also have some sort of ethical, and I'm calling it philosophical concerns. We worry about plagiarism on the design side too. Adobe specifically has said that it only trains on its own licensed content, but it feels like a gray area because when photographers and illustrators kind of originally licensed their content, AI wasn't in the picture. So their content is kind of being used in a way now that's different than what they signed up for. And then, outside of Adobe, how are other generative AIs training themselves? I could be unintentionally copying another artist's style by using just the output that it gives me. And then we just have sort of these really broad concerns about what the future of creativity and art look like with generative AI. Art is created by humans by definition, and it's a product of our unique experiences as people. And we think that's a really important thing to hold on to. And as a designer and an artist myself, I could never feel comfortable with generating an image or a design and then just using it as is and passing it off as my own. Like there's no pride of ownership. There's no, I just wouldn't morally feel good about doing that. So looking ahead, if there are ways to save time and get inspiration from AI, we're definitely going to keep exploring that. But right now, I think on the design side, we're definitely pretty far from being like all in 100% on the wave. But that's it for me. Did any design specific questions come in, or can we pass it off to?
I don't see any design specific questions come in, but we did have something related to, you mentioned plagiarism. We have somebody saying that they use Grammarly's plagiarism detector on some of the guest written pieces they receive, especially for new writers. And she's just wondering if we have any better tools for that, or if anybody on the call does. I also use Grammarly's plagiarism detector. Dragonflies, do you have anything that you use, or anybody in the chat can pop anything in that they might use? Copy leaks, says Amy Pruschauer. If you guys see Amy Pruschauer Kelly's name here in our chat, she does a lot of training on AI and ethics, specifically in the communications world. So feel free to Google her afterwards and look into her classes, because we've attended them and found them really useful. All right, well, Molly, do you want to talk to us about project management?
Yes, and I am super excited about how AI is transforming project management and what opportunity, like both how we're using it now and what it might look like in the future. And there's this quote from a recent PMI report that should pop up on the slide. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this really encapsulates my experience thus far with exploring the various AI tools that exist right now for project management. This is just like exactly what I found, is that it's been very helpful for us, but as the tasks get more complex, you do need a human there checking the work or intervening in some way. So I'm going to just share with you now, like what we're doing kind of with the most basic level. We're using AI to automate simple tasks. AI is really terrific at handling routine work quickly and pretty accurately. You can see in the meeting minutes example here, the date is wrong. That date has not happened yet, but basically everything else was correct. And this is work that is very low value and would take a bit of time. I wouldn't, you know what, let me rephrase that. It's not low value. We need it, but it takes time. And if we can automate this using AI, like just have a human person come back and behind and look and correct any errors, that is just transformative really to our days, because it saves us so much time and frees us up to do higher value work. There's other applications similar, crafting emails, creating meeting agendas and things like that. And then moving on beyond this like more mundane work to more complex problems, we can use the different AI tools to brainstorm solutions for sort of tricky challenges that we're not sure how to solve. AI can help us generate multiple ideas in seconds. It can fill knowledge gaps that we just don't even know are there and help us overcome roadblocks. It can do sort of that first base level of brainstorming. And this is really promising for us. Oh, Casey, will you just go back one? Thank you. This is super promising for us at Dragonfly because most of the projects that we handle are complex. They've got multiple services and phases. You know, they might have writing and editing and design and maybe even printing. And there's complicated schedules. And so if we can use AI to help us start or manage this project by maybe creating or adjusting a schedule, estimating and managing risks, then that's just going to help us do our work quicker and better. And then probably the most important thing, and I've seen it kind of come up in the chat, is effective prompting. So it's all about asking the right questions. We need to think about AI, I think, as sort of like a very bright, very hardworking assistant who wants to help you, but you don't quite speak the same language. So you have to know how to ask for what you need. So in this case, I asked for something and the output I got was just totally nonsense. So I had to go back and say, okay, I want something else. And then I got way too much information. So I had to ask again, something different. And then I got what I was looking for. So this is, I think, really illustrates you need to not be afraid to go back, be very clear, very specific in your prompts, give more detail than you might give if you were talking to a human. You can, for I think all the tools I've looked at, probably most of them, you can actually upload files. So you can upload a template if you want to, or you can give very specific details about this is what I want and this is the output. And then you can even ask the AI to help you craft better questions and prompts. So if you're not really sure what kind of question you should be asking the AI, you can ask it to help you write a better question. And then looking ahead, I would say we're really only starting to scratch the surface of what's possible here. I do think that the role of AI in project management is only going to grow as the tools continue to evolve. So at Dragonfly, we're going to be continuing our training on different AI tools and continuing to explore the capabilities of them, but also the risks, and trying to seek a balance between AI assistance and human expertise, because we don't want to replace the human touch, but we want to enhance it. Yeah, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I'm really excited for the future. I think our goal is always just to serve our customers better. And I think that AI is going to help us to streamline our workflows and to support our projects better and just deliver better results for our clients. And so I'm really excited about, how we're going to be able to use AI to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Molly. And one of the themes I keep hearing from all of you guys is more efficient, saving time. And, that's a huge benefit for our customers because they come to us with often massive projects that need to be done really quickly. And, we make our mark by stepping up and saying, yeah, sure, we can help with that. And we'll get that done for you on time. So anything that we can do to, like you said, streamline our processes and make our results more efficient is better for us, better for everybody. One question, a couple questions that have come in that I think are really important I want to address. Dave is asking, what steps we're taking to protect confidentiality and security of customer information with our AI tools. And I would say a couple different, and somebody else is asking, what about companies that don't allow putting project data or deliverables into a public chatbot or LLM? So there's a few different ways I want to answer this. First of all, if a customer specifically requests us to not use any AI tools, absolutely. We really, work with our customers' workflows and preferences. So if that's a no-go for you, you tell us, and that just won't be part of our workflow. The second way, which I think is important, is we have three enterprise level systems. In other words, paid systems that we use now with our staff. We have a paid ChatGPT instance. We use Claude, like the name Claude, and we use Perplexity. And so we have the settings set on all of those so that any information we put in there is not shared back up to the cloud, is not shared back up to that model to retrain and retrain their data. So I think it's important to know that you can give your tools that setting. As a matter of fact, Perplexity, our enterprise version of Perplexity, doesn't even offer that as an option, that the information is shared back up. Like you can't even choose that if you want to. So that's a second answer. The third answer is right now, there's not a whole lot of customer information that we're, dumping into a ChatGPT and saying, do something with this, analyze this, or edit this. We're really using it in very selective ways. Like Kaylin said, maybe to edit a reference list. A lot of times I'm using it as a writing prompt where I'll start writing something, I'll kind of get stuck. I'll prompt a search engine to give me some information. It gives me a couple ideas. So it's almost like then the Perplexity or Claude is prompting me back. And I'm like, ooh, that's a good idea to write about. I'll write some more. I might get stuck and prompt it again. Its response gives me a creative idea and prompts me to write some more. So it really is a back and forth process. Almost a lot of times I find more on the micro level rather than what we think is a worst case scenario, somebody who would just take a customer information and dump it into a truly public facing LLM. Let's see, team, we're going to jump into a Q&A, but let me pop up another one of the polls that we had. Oh, and I do want to talk about the ethical use of AI too, but let me get this poll going for us. In terms of ethics, we've talked about this a lot throughout this session. I think one of the big recommendations that I have for everybody that we're working with is to develop your own AI ethical policy. Essentially, what's your team comfortable and does it feel right doing, and what doesn't feel right? For us, that's evolved a lot. When we started out in 2023, because of all the various sketchy concerns about AI, we had a very strict policy. We're not going to use AI to produce copy, create images, edit content, or replace any credible sources that we normally use, like subject matter experts or doing our own independent research. Now, almost 2 years later, as we've seen these tools get better, as our understanding of how to use them is better, as our understanding of the privacy options is better, it's a little bit more nuanced. Like I said, we're never going to use it to produce copy completely. We're not going to put a prompt in, get a big document, send it off to a customer. It just doesn't work that way. We're never going to, like Casey said, we can't really even use it to create entire images. Even if we wanted to, the results are too scattershot, too weird. And as Kaylin reinforced, nothing is at a point where we can use a tool to edit content without us really closely reviewing all of the suggested changes. We don't know where this is all going to take us. AI is kind of a black box from that perspective. I don't anticipate these changing very much, even so, as we move forward. And, you know, as we've reiterated to us, the bottom line is we're using these AIs as assistive tools to help us with our work, make things a little more efficient. The bottom line, everything we create is based on our human creativity and your human creativity. You know, the knowledge that your companies have, your subject matter experts, your proprietary data, research, products, everything that we create is, you know, based on those things. Let's see what you guys have to say about this poll. Okay, so we have most of you guys saying that, you know, after this session at least, you're either definitely going to try using some AI more, or you're at least you're in a we'll see position. And, you know, I think it's for everybody to decide what's best for their organization. And we're here to support you guys in, you know, whatever you want to do. We have a few more minutes. I want to reiterate that, yes, this session is going to be shared out to everybody. Let me see any other questions that we have. Casey, we did have somebody wondering, have you been experimenting yet with drawing charts or figures on the design side?
A little bit, yeah, and that's definitely one of those areas similar to kind of like references for Caitlin, where it's like I don't think there's any designers who are super creatively passionate about creating a bar chart or you know, like a pie graph. So that's definitely an area that I think we can use for like increasing efficiency and just speeding up the process for something that is pretty pretty manual for right now.
Yeah. A question that came in, how do you move from AI exploration and experimentation to company-wide adoption? And I can address that. I think we've done a few different things over the past 2 years. You know, first of all, when at a certain point, we realized we can't keep our heads in the sand. We need to pursue this and see how it can help us and help our customers. So number one, we made really clear to our team that this was a new direction we were going in, that this was an important new initiative for our company. We task our leadership, everybody that you see here, with figuring out how's that going to work in your area? You know, what can we start doing that will bring value to our customers? We supported paid training for our staff, both on the writing side, the editing side, design, project management, to really dig into some of the new tools and methods. And, you know, honestly, we just kind of encourage people to play with the tools, not on client deliverables, but just use them in our own Dragonfly work and start to get a feel for what works and what doesn't. I think it still can be a struggle. I think it's not perfect here at Dragonfly, but that's true for any change that you want to try to adopt through an organization. There's going to be some people who are early adopters who love it. There's going to be some people who have a more cautious approach. So I think that's fair to expect anywhere. Molly, we did have a question. If you have you used AI yet to create actually create a production schedule?
So I just sent a response.
Oh, good. Okay.
So yeah, we can move on, or I can answer it now, whatever you prefer.
Well, maybe you could just tell us if that's something that you're exploring or have tried yet.
Yeah, I have experimented with it in ChatGPT, and it is a bit like manual at first, but you can put in like a prompt that says, these are the activities, these are the dependencies, and you will need to, you know, iterate a bit with the prompt. I think ideally that would be a capability that would be built into our PM or CMS, hopefully, but it's possible. I don't know that it's like much faster at this point. But
yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
We also had a question that's another really good one. Who owns the output of AI? The short answer is that's complex, as they say. For what it's worth, Anthropic, who owns Claude, and OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT, they both state, unequivocally that the users of the content, users of their systems own any of the output they create from their systems. Okay, so we have that one factor. We also have the factor that right now, anything that's completely created by AI can't be copyrighted. And there's still some questions about if things are dual created by human and AI, can those be copyrighted? There's also questions about if somebody brought up earlier, if the AI is using, say, a copyrighted data set to produce its information, and then you use that information, are you violating that original copyright? So there's lots of, I'll just go with this one being, yes, you own it as the user, but also it's complex. Let's see, any other questions that anybody sees that we want to answer? We're about at the top of the hour. Oh, actually, I do have one that I do want to address that I think is really important. How do you account for bias in generative AI's output? This is something that comes up a lot. I actually looked this up yesterday and I asked Perplexity to answer this question because I wanted to learn more about this topic. And for the systems themselves, for example, it recommended that they use training data sets that are as diverse as possible, or introduce algorithms that are designed to spot bias, so that's that's for Sam Altman and co to figure out on their side. On our side, for me, there's not a huge difference in how we take in AI generated results as we took in any research that we ever did in the past. We look at everything with a critical eye. We don't assume that anything we look up in Google or anywhere is unequivocally true. So we're always looking for bias, looking for content that's doesn't feel or seem quite right, and making sure that we're getting the most accurate content for our customers. So why don't we wrap up? Thank you all so much. Dragonfly team, thank you for sharing all of the great information that you're doing. Folks, thanks so much for being here, and we will send out a recording in the next couple days. If you have further questions, write to these brilliant people. They will answer you about AI topics or anything you want to chat about. So,
Thank you.
all right, thanks for
Thanks,
being here,
everyone.
everybody.